During the Irish potato famine in the 19th century, a vast number of immigrants flocked to the United States to seek comfort, refuge, and a better way of life for their families. One of the many places these immigrants fled to was the lavish farmland of western New York. If an Irishman's ticket said Brooks Castle, they would end up in Pearl Creek, New York, as farmhands. Thus the birth of St. Mary's Parish, as the Presbyterian Brooks family allowed the immigrants to hold their first Mass in their home. In the mid-1850s, Irish immigrants traveled to Pavilion from Pearl Creek to establish their church. In 1861, Reverend Cunningham said Mass in a blacksmith shop that was believed to be across from the Kemp and Rogers garage. Later in 1868, a lot was bought to build the first church, which was a 40 by 60-foot structure. In 1887, Reverend Mild bought the house next to the church building for the rectory. It was at this time that Pavilion became an independent parish. Reverend Mild was succeeded by Reverend Killeen in 1889. Killeen was succeeded by Reverend Kelly in 1902. Reverend Dobbins replaced Kelly in 1906. In 1906, the rectory burned and a new building was built by Reverend Dobbins. Louise Lynch, one of the longest living church members, recalls a memory of Father Dobbins.
Now, what happened to you when you were naughty?
I was like myself. I was always laughing. I know somebody said something, and I was laughing. Of course, I didn't know enough not to laugh out loud. And he comes in from the side there, and he catches me. He hears me, and I was not being biased enough for him. So he says, "Louise, get out here and kneel in the middle of the aisle." And so I did. And I did that all during catechism. So that told me I was not to laugh anymore.
Not in catechism.
Not in catechism.
And now, you remember coming down in the sleigh?
Yes. We used to, my father would hitch the team up to a sleigh. And then we had these buffalo robes and blankets. And we were all wrapped up in those. And then we'd go down to there. And at that time, there was a shed across from where Jimmy Rogers' garage is. And they put the horses in there during Mass. I don't know how they did it. I imagine they had some ropes or something. They tied them up. But that's where they parked the horses during Mass. And then after Mass was over, we'd get in the car, or in the sleigh and come back.
Now, how old would you have been at that time?
I would probably be 6, 7.
So that's some of your earliest memories.
Yeah, right.
We were wondering about your brother, too. He was, we were going to talk about veterans.
And he was killed on February 22nd, 1944. We know everything that went on. That was the week of the big, what they call the big push, where the airmen were very busy. Oh, and another thing he told me here in one letter, he said, "We never go up, but the priest comes on his bicycle and blesses us." Now, that was nice to hear.
Yes.
But they got back. They had lost the belly gunner, they lost the tail gunner, and the turret gunner. And one of the people that was on the side, Danny and the co-pilot, were the only ones alive in the plane. And they had an emergency landing field, but it was so full they couldn't land. So they just had to keep flying around over the ocean, and it blew up.
about Ladies of Charity? You've been a member of that since,
Yes, since goodness.
but you still sell tickets?
What?
At the breakfast for the Ladies of Charity, you still sell tickets for raffles at the breakfast?
Oh yeah.
And up until a couple years ago, you made baked goods for
Yes,
the...
I did.
Many years ago, Ladies of Charity came to Buffalo in 1941. And in 1941, like Louise Lynch, I think she's probably the only one left that joined Ladies of Charity at that time. Nellie Berry was in it, and I think Marion Powers probably was in it at that time. And that handful, they finally disbanded and became the Altar and Rosary Society. So when Roger and I moved here, they were the Altar and Rosary Society. In 1962, the bishop invested all of us into the Ladies of Charity at St. Mary's. Okay, we do walker bags, wheelchair bags, Foley bags, care bags that go to the Strong Hospital, picture albums, baby quilts at baptism time, jerry chair quilts. Those are the recliners on wheels, and they're called jerry chairs, and they need longer quilts. And then the poinsettias are given to the shut-ins at Christmas time, and we give financial support to the Pavilion Community Food Pantry, All Babies Cherish, Wyoming County Nursing Facility, Sisters of St. Francis, and the Catholic Charities. And our mission is just to promote charity wherever it is needed. Father Hendricks, he really didn't know me, and yet he asked me to teach church school. And I looked at him, and at that time I think Charlie was about 5 years old. I looked at him and I says, I can't do that. I don't know enough about what I would have to teach him. He says, yes, you can. I says, no. And he says, yes, you can. He wasn't going to say no for an answer, so I said, okay. And then I got involved with Sister Mary Magdalene and Sister Mary Andrew. And that's how I learned something, because I needed somebody to tell me what to do. Don and Dottie Stevens had the restaurant at that time, and they opened that up in the morning, and there was at least one class was being taught there. And then we had one up in the choir loft, and it was just, and one in the rectory, and then just in the church. And that was how we taught for a little while. Yeah, Father Whitney, I think it was, because he had confirmation after he came. Yeah, Father Whitney, and we were able to work with the firemen and get the classes in the fire hall. So we were set up there.
Started with Linda Pembroke, started all this. And there were 3 or 4 guitars, a flute, an auto harp, trumpets, piano. We played at ecumenical services. We played many weddings in the sleet, hail, snow and wind. And extremely hot. I remember a wedding we did, it was very hot.
We played funerals.
A lot of funerals, yeah. What else?
How many years ago?
We figured out that we played more than 25 years. So we played all through the Conlon years.
Yeah.
And then, there was a priest after that, Father David, maybe? Or the young contemporary priest we had at one time.
And Mary Rose was the baby, and she's still playing now, but now she plays the clavinova.
Yeah, Miss Pembroke reeled us in when we were in high school.
She had
You were in high
She taught me
school.
guitar,
She
and we all
had
did
the
Miss
12
Pembroke
string.
strum. So she was the one, and you guys were playing. Yeah.
St. Mary's Parish has been blessed for a century and a half with gifts of finest years. Agriculture has been a thread woven in our history. The people of this parish not only worked hard and prayed hard, but they also played hard. For decades, Mass on Sunday has always been at 8 o'clock and 10:30 in the morning. In the mid part of the 20th century, the Snyder family traditionally held a breakfast after 10:30 Mass so folks and family around the community could extend their beloved fellowship throughout the day after church. Bob McGee, whose mother Marjorie was a Snyder, started the annual church breakfast in the fire hall long after the Snyder restaurant closed. The first annual church breakfast was held in the late 1970s. After Bob McGee coordinated the breakfast, Pat and Chuck Davis took over during the Father Conlon era. Cliff Elliott ran the breakfast soon after, and currently Lisa Schiske is in charge of the event along with her breakfast club. Over the course of 150 years, St. Mary's started with 15 Irish immigrants in a farmhouse located in Pearl Creek. The parish has grown leaps and bounds since then with many changes and additions to programs and structures. Most recently, a church hall was built, and major restorations were made to the interior of the church. However, we must never forget that it's not a building that makes the church, but people do. Although a place of worship is important to one's faith, fellowship runs much deeper for those who love one another in this small farm community. Congratulations to the parish of St. Mary's in Pavilion, New York for harvesting many generations of love.